Hey, Brandon here. Welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. Got a 3-round Devy mock draft for you here today. Now, if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football and you're wondering what a Devy mock draft is, it's very simple. It is basically drafting college football players right now, putting them on your taxi squads, on your Dynasty rosters, with the goal of them hitting your Dynasty rosters in future years. So we're going to be talking about 2025 draftable players, 2026 and 2027. So again, you play Dynasty and you've always wondered what Devy is. Stick around for this 3-round Devy mock. It's going to show you what the future Dynasty assets look like that could be potentially hitting your rookie rosters in future years. I'm going to be joined by Jason DiRienzo, my podcast co-host, as well as one of my favorite people in the Dynasty college C2C space, Felix Sharp from campus2canton.com. We're going to do a 3-round draft. It's going to be a super flex, PPR tight end premium. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing all sorts of film cut-ups and everything as we now head into the 2024 college football season. Enjoy the draft. We're going to do a 3-round Devy mock, Superflex PPR tight end premium. All right, so this will be a 3-round snake draft. Jason gave you the first pick. Who you going?
Did. I'm gonna make this easy, man. I'm gonna go with the guy that I feel most confident that when I look 3-4 years from now, I know that he's gonna be asset on my dynasty roster, my Devy dynasty roster. That's Jeremiah Smith. I know he hasn't played it down in college, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to a player, it's not even the hype. I mean, if you watch the high school film, it's completely evident that this kid is special. And if you watch all the practices and everything leading up to this season, he's just been dominant. I mean, he removed the black stripe really early in his Ohio State career. Everything I'm looking for, everything I was looking for Garrett Wilson, this kid's already doing. I feel great about Jeremiah Smith, even taking him over a quarterback in Superflex tight end premium league. Give me Jeremiah Smith all day long.
He could be the Marvin Harrison Jr.
He could be
2.0 in 3 years. So I'm thinking a lot of people feel that way. Felix Sharp, because I am the kind host, I gave you the second selection. Who did you take at number 2?
Brandon, I try to make layups here. I don't need to take any deep shots here. We can look 2 years from now in 2025, and Carson Beck will be having an impact on our dynasty rosters. Loves the middle of the field, loves to be aggressive out on the edges, loves the back shoulder, a pure drop back passer, accurate. I mean, he could be the number 1 pick, if not a top 10 pick. He's going to be an asset in 2025 on our dynasty rosters. So I don't need to make this, try really hard here. Give me Carson Beck at the 102.
I love that. Yeah, you know what? When we play this game, Devy, man, we're always reaching, right? We all have freshman fever, and it's hard. But you know what? That is a good selection, Felix. I like your discipline. And why not get an asset that's going to hit our dynasty roster next year? And I'm going to follow that up with a 2025 prospect myself, and I'm going to go with Luther Burden. I think it's like week to week, it's either Burden or McMillan, and I watch a little more tape and it goes back and forth and kind of where I am right now. I'm going to be leaning Burden between those two. I'm going to go with a wide receiver. All the dynasty teams that I have that are successful, I've got solid wide receivers. There could be a quarterback here that might be taken. We'll probably see his name not too far away. But Luther Burden is going to have another dominant season this year, arguably the wide receiver 1 or 1.2 in next year's draft. So I'm going to take Luther Burden here. Jason DiRienzo, you've got the next pick.
You kind of just mentioned his name already, and I'm gonna, go with this big receiver in Teteroa McMillan, or T-Mac, as he liked to be called, coming out of high school. I mean, the kid's just a dominant at the catch point. I mean, his elevator goes all the way to the penthouse when he's leaping for a contested situational grab. There's splashes of Drake London. There's splashes of Mike Evans. I want to see a little bit more with the route running, but the ball skills are just absolutely what the NFL is looking for right now. And I think that we're going to see him perform right out the gate when he gets to the next level. So it's T-Mac for me.
Yeah, you and I did a lot of summer scouting with that all-22 film, and we came away pretty impressed with his ball skills. Are pretty elite there. Whatever his skill set. Mr. Sharp, you got the 5th pick.
I wanted to take Teteroa McMillan. He wasn't available, so I took my next best, highest receiver in Evan Stewart. We just saw Garrett Wilson taken by the Jets really high. I think that Evan Stewart can be Garrett Wilson light. He can play all 3 wide receiver positions. Great route runner. He just needs to stay healthy. I think the NFL teams are going to go look at that 2023 game against Kool-Aid McKinstry, an overmatched Texas A&M team going up against Alabama. He performed adequately there, and he's going to be in a super explosive offense this year. here with Tez Johnson on the other side of him and Dylan Gabriel throwing him the ball the first year Oregon in the Big Ten, transferring to Oregon to elevate his profile. I think he's going to do just that. So give me Evan Stewart here.
Yeah, I like him too. It's in the top 5.
Yeah, I like him too.
Wide receiver. Yeah, Jason and I did another all 22 film review with him as well. Came away really impressed, and I'm glad he got out of that Texas A&M situation. Now he can maybe really take that next step in his development in his career. With the 6th pick in the first round, I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders. You know, all the Draft Nicks guys got this guy as a top 10 pick. I just saw 2 mock drafts this week that he could arguably be the QB1 of the class. Now, you either love Sanders or some people don't think that he is going to translate to the NFL, but I'm going to say the odds are that he does. And of course, everyone's talked about his pocket presence and his ability to make plays off script and have a little bit more, you know, awareness. But I think he's got the arm. I think he's got the pedigree. And so I'm going to take Sanders here. We're talking about a super flex, and quarterbacks have, I think he's just as safe as a first-round pick as Carson Beck going into the draft next year, unless the wheels really fall off the bus, which I don't think is going to happen. Jason, you got the next pick.
Yes, I do, and I'm going to go off. You know, I'm going to go a different route than I usually would, and that's just because I have so much belief in this kid's talent. I'm going with Nico Iamaleava, the Tennessee quarterback. And, you know, a lot of people are thrown off by his height. You know, he's been listed at 6'6". I don't really care, man. The off-field, everything that's been talked about with this kid, the intangibles are off the charts. I actually like the volleyball background. I think that actually helps him with his field awareness and pocket presence, understanding his surroundings and what's around him. And he's got a cannon for an arm. We saw him throw on the run and, you know, hit outside the perimeter and with good accuracy. So I think this kid's going to light up. I like the weapons that are around him. I think they've set him up for success, and I only see good things from here on out. So I feel really good about Nico.
All right, Felix.
I took Alec Amayor here as the wide receiver out of Stanford. He really impressed me last year. He's a little bit of a throwback, a guy you can throw it up to on the back shoulder for contested catches, for fades. I know the NFL doesn't really do that as much this in 2024, but it could be because they don't have the players to pull those balls down. Amayor can, as we saw against Travis Hunter, but I also think that he has a mean first step up. You know, a guy who can run a slant and is a hard tackle. I like size in the NFL. 6'2", 210 for Amayor. And for Coach Troy Taylor, an offense that's going to be explosive. Ashton Daniels is the starting quarterback there. They should have consistency in that position. He's going to produce, and I talked about taking layups. I think Amayor could be a first-round pick. If not, we'll be taking the first 3 rounds. Wow. So to me, this feels like I'm building in some safety. And this is a Devy draft. I think every player that I've taken is going to be on my roster next year. So that was another theme of this pick.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to follow that theme as well, and I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka here. Ohio State wide receiver. He will be hitting my dynasty roster next year. He's coming off and not such a great productive season last year. Jason and I again watched the All-22 film. We felt he was a twitchy player, is a good route runner, comes from Ohio State. He's got the pedigree. One thing I'll be looking for this year from him, I'd love to see him have a little bit more vertical prowess in his game to round out his ability to win at all 3 levels of the field. But you know, right now he looks to be a round 1, you know, player that's going to be drafted next year, hitting my dynasty roster next year. So pretty easy pick here for me, Emeka Egbuka here. Mr. DiRienzo.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Zachariah Branch. And for some, this might seem a bit early because the shine's worn off, but I know this skill set. I watched a lot of Zachariah Branch when he was coming out of high school. And I actually think USC knows exactly what they have in him, too. I mean, this is a twitchy athlete that understands his surroundings. You know, he can take the ball that's he might get like 2-3 yards and make like 15-20 yards out of it with just his movement ability and his understanding of how to manipulate within his own mechanics. And I actually think that when he gets the route running down, we are going to see a very special player. The production profile may not look that great, but I also think that he could be the Jalen Waddle of the 2026 class because of the profile, what he can deliver. And I think the whole NFL draft process with the NFL Combine is just going to expose how good he is, and NFL teams are going to fall in love with his skill set and his special teams abilities. So Zachariah Branch, to me, deserves to be here.
Yeah, it's about where I think he would be coming off in the first round in one of these drafts. And this is his year. This is his year.
It's
He needs to, I want to see him be the wide receiver 1 on that team this year. Mr. Sharp.
4 picks in, and I've taken players that are going to be on my rosters next year, and it's no different here with Travion Henderson. You know, explosive player. 3 years ago, he was all the rage after that great freshman season. He's kind of taken a step back since then. You bring in Chip Kelly, and I think that offense that they're going to run, you know, this spread run, fast-paced system is going to be great for both Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. He's going to go to the combine and run a 4.3 something, weigh in at 210 pounds. There's a slight chance, in my opinion, that he gets drafted in the first round, probably a day 2 guy. I don't think that he's on, you know, Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson level, but he's going to show enough in both production and that NFL combine testing that he should be taken on day 2. He's going to be another factor on my roster next season.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. With the 12th pick in the first round, kind of round out our first round, I'm going to take Justice Haynes, running back from Alabama. I'm going to have to wait 2 seasons before Justice Haynes hits my roster. But I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to be, you know, he's going to be well worth the wait. He should be splitting carries with Jam Miller at Alabama. Kind of flashed last year, really showed some good development last season throughout the season. And I think he's going to get the ball a lot. And he's in my top 3 Devy are, you know, running back. So pretty pleased to get him here in the end of the first round. I'm going to be taking Justice Haynes from Bama. And I'm going to do a snake draft here. So I got the next pick, and I'm going to take Travis Hunter from Colorado with the intent that hopefully he declares as a wide receiver, of course, for a draft like this. So, you know, wanting to hit our dynasty roster, but this guy is just a true explosive athlete. He can win all over the field, good hands, really good route runner. I mean, you would talk about an explosive playmaker. I think the NFL, I mean, if he does declare as a wide receiver, he is going to be a first round draft pick either way, even if he's a corner, if he declares. But, you know, assuming here he's a wide receiver, I think he'll be a first round lock in 2026. Go ahead, Felix.
It's up to me. I'm going back to Ohio State's backfield to Quinshon Judkins, whereas Travion Henderson is the outside runner that I want to get in space. Quinshon Judkins, you can pound it in the middle. One of the best freshman seasons that we've seen at the running back position there at Ole Miss. The same things I said about Chip Kelly applying to Travion Henderson, those apply to Quinshon Judkins. Again, I think that this guy has, you know, a day 2 draft capital potential, and another player who's going to be on my rosters in 2020. This is different from C2C or anything else. Like, I was drafting players that I wanted on my roster next season. So give me Quinshon Judkins here.
I like it.
I like that strategy. That's pretty good. I'm going to take advantage of the Superflex format. Geez, talking is very hard for me tonight. And I'm going to go with Arch Manning. I mean, this is a kid that I have a hard time seeing how he could fail unless he fails himself. He's got a great support system. Texas has done amazing surrounding him with talent. You know, his offensive line is going to be one of the top offensive lines. He's got Kelvin Banks, who should be a top 3 NFL draft pick. So I love what's in place for him. I love the skill set. We saw him do really well in the preseason or in that spring game. I mean, just it looked natural and easy for him. And I like the chemistry that I saw with him and his receivers already. So Arch Manning, to me, I feel really good about in the Superflex format, getting him here early in the second round.
Yeah, I like it. I think you know, it's you know, sometimes it's nice to come into college and wait your turn a little bit. Probably really ready to go next year. So with the 4th pick in the second round, I'm going to go with DJ Lagway, incoming freshman quarterback, true dual threat quarterback playing in the SEC. I like that. I'm going to have to wait 3 years to get him on my dynasty roster, but there's nothing that warms my heart like with a blanket than having one of the top quarterbacks in the future classes on my team, you know, and watching them develop over 3 years. So these quarterbacks are all very risky. We've seen this happen a million times where they don't pan out, but his dual threat ability, I think he ran over 1,000 yards or something in the senior year. You would know, wouldn't you, Felix? Didn't he run like an enormous amount of yardage?
He had one of the most productive seasons we've seen. And I don't know if that's just passing or rushing, but his you know, of all time, his senior season. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, Graham Mertz is down there, most likely going to take the job for this season, but that's fine. We're going to wait his turn, get on the field maybe next year and be the starter. So DJ Lagway here with the 4th pick in the second round.
Brandon, you went to the class of 2027. I'll go back to the class of 2027. If you haven't been paying attention, this is a great wide receiver class. You got Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, Ryan Wingo at Texas, Ryan Williams at Alabama. There's somebody I'm forgetting there. But I'm going to take Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman at Auburn, a big physical wide receiver. I took Elike Abayor. He's a throwback. Cam Coleman is definitely a throwback, a physical specimen. There's not a lot there at Auburn to stay in the way of him producing this year. But not only that, he's supposedly been excellent in camp. He could be pushing for a starting role as soon as week 1, if not shortly thereafter, for Coach Hugh Freeze. So give me Cam Coleman. I think that his value is going to skyrocket after this season, but that goes for a couple of wide receivers in this freshman class.
I agree with that. Yep. I'm going to go to the running back position for this next pick, and I'm going to go with Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back. And to me, when I watch this film, he just looks like he checked every single box of what I'm looking for. I love the pass catching ability. He's an explosive athlete. He's got great field vision. It doesn't matter if he's in the trenches, second level, third level. He just knows exactly where he is and how to manipulate defenders in front of him. Fluid navigator. And I just love the tenacity that he has even when he's taking on contact. So to me, I think Jeanty is going to be one of those guys that goes a lot higher than we expect in the NFL draft when he's coming out. He just seems like that type of guy that NFL teams trust, and he's got the skill set that really fits today's NFL.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was going to take. I'm surprised he lasted this long, to be honest with you, but that was a great selection here. So Felix, you were talking about the 2027 wide receiver class and how good it is. I think potentially I have one of the better ones that I'm going to select here with Ryan Williams going to Alabama. He is a 2027 prospect, incoming freshman. All reports out of camp is he's doing everything that I watched and saw in his high school film. The kid is a space creator, route runner, shifty, good ball skills in hands, really liked his overall game. And he's getting great reviews in camp, and we're all waiting for our next Alabama wide receiver to emerge. It's been a couple years since we've gotten that true alpha wide receiver, and he could potentially be the next one there at Bama.
Yeah, he's just 17 years old, reclassified. His birthday's in February, so he will actually play the entirety of the 2024 season at 17 years old. So I went with Antonio Williams here, 2025, slot wide receiver. Some guys at the company have comped him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So another wide receiver who will be on my roster next season. If he could stay healthy, he could really produce for Clemson this year. They brought in Garrett Riley from TCU. He's going to be in the second year of this of that system. The ball is going to go to Antonio Williams or Tyler Brown, one of those two. So performed well, really well as a freshman, was injured last season. I think he puts it all together for kind of he's already broken out, but a dominant season in 2024 if he can stay healthy before he makes the jump to the NFL.
Yeah, I love that pick, Felix, because he's kind of like he's the forgotten wide receiver in Devy. It's like we live in that "what have you done for me lately," right? And he seems like he's like a player no one talks about anymore because there's new shiny toys that have been in front of our faces all last year. So I think that's a great pick. You got the next pick, Jason.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Carnell Tate and talk about a guy who kind of, has been forgotten about because we have names like Emeka Buka and Jeremiah Smith. And Carnell Tate performed really well his first season. He was a highly regarded recruit coming out, and you saw the skill set on full display, when he was playing with Marvin Harrison Jr. So I think that Carnell Tate is a guy that I definitely want to, maintain the value because I absolutely see the skill set. It's going to translate over. He just has a target share that he has to share in this offense, but I don't think that matters. I think he's got the skill to really elevate himself and have a nice productive season once again.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. Can it go wrong with a Ohio State wide receiver, right? Well, you can sometimes, but I think he's gonna really flash this year. So with this 10th pick in the second round, I'm gonna go a little spicy here. One that's probably not gonna be very well received, or probably people thinking I'm making the right selection. But I'm going with Jalen Milroe from Alabama. I have not given up on Jalen Milroe as a potential quarterback in the NFL after seeing Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. Go to the draft this time last year. Nobody was thinking those two would ever have been first, round picks where they went. New coach in town, coach from Washington who coached Penix last year is now the guy who's going to be, teaching him everything he does well on the field. He's dual threat, strong, leadership skills off the charts. as a passer, the ball placement needs to be more consistent. So if he can pull that together this year, all these players, can improve every year. He's got all the traits the NFL wants in a quarterback with his size, his mobility, his toughness, his leadership. All he's got to do now is get that arm a little tighter. And I think he could be a surprise next year in the NFL draft.
Kalen DeBoer's last 2 quarterbacks, Jake Haener, Michael Penix Jr., both drafted, both with lesser pedigrees coming in as high school prospects than Jalen Milroe. So I like that call there. Yeah. I'm going to go with Nicholas Singleton. To the 211, I get Nicholas Singleton, one of the best backs from an athleticism standpoint at the end of the second round here. I know that he had a down sophomore campaign. I know that he's sharing the field with Katron Allen, but they bring in Andy Kolodnicki from Kansas. He should get that running game going. If you look at the strength of that Penn State team, let's turn around and hand it to these 2 guys. So Nicholas Singleton, if you just talk about like traits, I don't think that there's a better running back in the country. Now, he does have some vision issues running in the interior that he can improve on, but this is another guy who, if he has a successful campaign in 2024, we're talking about like high round draft capital for him. Again, I know he took a step back in his sophomore season, but I'm looking forward to 2024 to see what he can do. And to get him here at the end of the second round, listen, another player, this is Devy, who might be on my roster next season. So I like Nick Singleton.
I love it. Jason, you got 2 picks, buddy.
I do. And I'm going to go the running back position too. And I'm going to go after Trevor Etienne, Georgia running back, transferred over from Florida. And while he's at Florida, I was really impressed with him. I mean, this is an explosive running back that I saw make plays out of absolutely nothing. Along the perimeter, there's one play at Georgia where he just hit a gear, man, and you just saw him take off. He's very manipulative. I like the elusiveness within his mechanics of the footwork. And I think he could be a very viable pass catcher too. So I want to see him dominate this season with the Bulldogs. I know he's got some competition in the backfield. Branson Robinson's looking healthy, but I think Trevor Etienne could be one of those running backs that really impresses. And I think the NFL is looking for an explosive back just like him. And I'm sure his brother's helping him out, with what to expect going to the next level as well. So I like Trevor Etienne here. Oh, and that's the end of the second. Right. So with the first pick in the third round, I'm going with Isaiah Bond, another transferring over from Alabama, going to Texas. I already picked up Arch Manning in this draft. Why not team him up with an explosive downfield deep threat in Isaiah Bond? And I think Bond can actually be a lot more than just a deep threat. We did a film review on him, and I came away pretty impressed with the route running. I like the breaks at the top of his route. He's got good acceleration, manipulative within the arsenal of his release moves. I think Isaiah Bond's flying under the radar a little bit, maybe due to size, but I think he's got a nice all-around skill set and could be a big-time playmaker at the next level.
I like it.
I'm going to be honest. I think here in the third round, I dominated this round with all of my picks, starting with Lenore Sellers here, the South Carolina quarterback. Now, here's where I started taking some shots. Right. If we're talking about potentially the next Anthony Richardson, I think DJ Lagway at Florida, not as explosive of a rusher as Richardson, but here we go with Lenore Sellers, 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds, probably in that 4'6" range, more developed than Richardson was at this point in his career as a passer. There's the potential, in my opinion, that he could be the face of college football because he has a unique look. He's got the glasses underneath his helmet, just a unique looking player, but a guy that can absolutely ball. People on the video game, on the college football video game, are playing with South Carolina because of Lenore Sellers, because of Nick Harbor. But there's a chance that this dude breaks college football in 2024. He was injured as a senior or as a junior, one of his years, which kind of stunted his recruiting. Was originally committed to Syracuse. South Carolina's got a gem here, just a 3-star player, but we're very, very high on him. I can't wait for 2024 to start. One of those reasons being because Lenore Sellers is the starting quarterback for South Carolina this year.
I can feel the passion in your voice about this guy. I love it. It's great.
And the confidence.
Well, listen, we are in my guy territory, right? So I'm going to tell you one of my guys.
You're absolutely right.
Eric Singleton Jr. I love the way this kid plays. Probably a surprise pick here. He's a true freshman last year, had over 700 yards, I think 7-8 touchdowns, something like that. But Man, watching his film, I like the way he plays, his boundary awareness, his body control for a wide receiver, his hands, his vertical, threat. I mean, 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns, just winning vertically down the field, all as a freshman. I mean, yeah, it's Georgia Tech, but I mean, 700 yards and as many touchdowns as he scored. Really impressed with this game. Little on the thin side, but it's got time to develop, get a little stronger. But Eric Singleton Jr. is one of my guys, and wasn't going to come out of this draft without him.
Nice. I'm gonna go a little bit different here. I'm gonna take advantage of the tight end premium scoring, and I'm gonna go with Michigan tight end Colston Loveland. I know a lot of people are very hesitant with tight end, especially coming out of Michigan. But Brandon, you and I recently did a breakdown of him, and man, this kid he plays like a receiver within the route running ability. At the top of his routes, he's manipulative. We saw him hand swipe, really fight through contact, and his hands are phenomenal. Caught everything that came his way. Even in the center of the field, he had a really difficult catch that he had to make above the rim, came down with it, gained an additional 10 yards. I think this kid is one of those that I feel is going to be a first round prospect. Having the positional advantage at tight end this early on, having him on my Devy roster, I feel really good about. So I want to make sure I got a guy that I know can be a dominant receiver in fantasy, but also NFL teams are going to love maximizing his ability of his all-around skill set. So Colston Loveland for me here.
Like it.
Yeah, Colston Loveland, a converted wide receiver, so and bulked up to play the tight end position there for Michigan. I took Kyron Drones, Virginia Tech quarterback Kyron Drones, 2,000 yards passing, 800 yards rushing last year. Only started, I think he started in the third game. 6'2", 235 pounds, turns into a fullback at the line of scrimmage. Now, this dude has a cannon for an arm. Now, Virginia Tech, his first year starting, they kind of asked him to do a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage, but he did hit some of those big plays. This is a guy who could take a step in 2024. They have a great wide receiver core for college purposes. They have a great wide receiver core for Virginia Tech. I think that he's on the Jalen Hurts, Jalen Milroe spectrum. And again, someone who could get you double-digit touchdowns on the ground with that 6'2", damn near 240-pound frame, bowling in there. Very physical player playing the quarterback position, excellent athlete. Give me Kyron Drones as one of these shots who could really hit from a fantasy perspective.
I love it, man. I wouldn't have expected to see his name here, but that I think it's great. 6th pick in the 3rd round. I'm going to go with Nate Frazier, Georgia running back, going to the 2027 class. He's been my RB1 of this class all year. Love this high school film. There's, word out right now that he's actually could get some run for Georgia, maybe with ETN and stuff this year. But watching all the high school film that I did this year, I really came away impressed. And again, we're looking for that next big Georgia running back. I think Nate Frazier could possibly, fit the bill for that.
Yeah, with the 7th pick in the 3rd round, I'm going to go with Trey or Eugene Wilson III out of Florida. I mean, this is an explosive receiver. I want to see a little bit more nuance as a route runner, but for what they've asked him to do, this kid is a dynamic playmaker. No matter what he's doing or where he is on the field, if he has the ball in his hand, he is a threat to take it to the house or at least make a big play. You see the explosiveness. It's really easy and smooth for him. I think this is a kid that's going to translate very well to the next level. Again, I just want to see a little bit more nuance as far as his route running. He's got a limited tree, but that's okay. I see the skill set. I love what I've seen so far, and I think he's going to be absolutely dominant this season. So Eugene Wilson here, pick 7.
All right, that brings it to me and Caleb Jackson. And if there's a player that you're like, there are a couple of players in college football. The defensive tackle for Michigan is another one. You're like, why is this person so fast? Like, why? It doesn't look like they should be moving that fast. Caleb Jackson, LSU running back, is one of those players. I think if he was in old Brett Bielema, Wisconsin teams, he could be a 2,000-yard rusher. 240 pounds, probably in the 4.4 range. Going to split time with Josh Williams there at LSU. By the way, a team that overall we think Garrett Nussmeier can throw for 4,000 yards. This is a team that's going to have to score because their defense is so bad. But Caleb Jackson is what you look for in a bell cow. I don't really know how else to say it. I think that the coaches are making a mistake in splitting the time. And we've seen coaches make this mistake before with just not evaluating the talent on their own rosters before. Anthony Richardson, Emory Jones, that was one with Dan Mullen. I think that Brian Kelly is making a mistake by not giving Caleb Jackson 70% of the workload. He's going to be a player that, the NFL dynasty community falls in love with come draft season because, oh, by the way, probably the most physical runner in college football, a guy that you just do not like. If you're playing Caleb Jackson that week, you better wear those extra pads under your shoulder pads, buckle up your chin strap because it's going to hurt. And give me Caleb Jackson here.
I know exactly I know exactly what tweet you're talking about too, with the physicality, him running down the left sideline and
Mississippi State. It was against Mississippi State.
Put that guy on his ass pretty good. So I'm going to go with TJ Moore, Clemson wide receiver, 2027 prospect. He was my wide receiver 2 just after Jeremiah Smith. Really loved his high school film. Thinking there might be a chance. He's a little late to the spring party. Wesco, another Clemson wide receiver, was an early enrollee. I believe that TJ Moore got there a little later, so he's a little behind in getting up on the playbook and getting out on the field. But I think when, this time maybe next year, he could be a bona fide wide receiver 1 on that team. Talked about Antonio Williams playing primarily the slot. TJ Moore might play, either boundary, but really liked what I saw in his high school film. I'm going to take a swing with him here.
I like that pick a lot. TJ Moore is my wide receiver 3 in that class. I'm going with Micah Hudson, who's my wide receiver 2, and this is a dynamic receiver. I just got done talking about Eugene Wilson and how explosive and dynamic he is as a playmaker. I'm gonna say that Micah Hudson is everything I want from Eugene as far as like the nuance as a route runner, the release moves, the breaks in his routes, the understanding of manipulation, great hands, understands how to get yards after the catch. I mean, this kid has it all. He's going to be starting his first year at Texas Tech, and I think that he's going to be a primary weapon in that offense, and he's only going to keep going up in value from here on out. So Micah Hudson, I had to make sure he got in this mock draft.
That's my last pick is Jeremy Bernard. One-time Michigan State wide receiver, one-time Washington receiver. He follows Kalen DeBoer from Washington to Alabama. He was not a year 1-0 when he was at Michigan State. 6'1", 205 pounds, 209 pounds, a good runner after the catch. This is really a projection for him being Jalen Milroe's #1 player. By the way, if you watch that spring game, he was his #1 option, Jalen Milroe's #1 option. So, but was really good last year behind 3 guys who were 3 wide receivers who were drafted. He still had 400 yards, 300 yard receiving, but he also added 12 carries for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, if there's a player who's going to have a breakout in 2024, who people don't really know out there, I would say it's Jeremy Bernard for Alabama. Give me Jeremy Bernard as my last pick in this draft.
And that coincides with your theory of he'll be possibly on your roster next year. That's true. All right, I'm going to end this draft. We're only doing 3 rounds here tonight, and I'm going to take Dylan Raiola, quarterback, Nebraska, 2027 prospect. So, like I said before, when I took DJ Lagway, Devy quarterbacks, I'll just end this Devy draft on a little lesson in Devy that a lot of us know, but if you're new to the space and new about Devy, his quarterbacks are really risky. I mean, this is a very interesting, quarterback selection during these 3 rounds. I just couldn't leave without getting Dylan Raiola. I mean, he should be starting in Nebraska this year. Either it was 1 or 2, I think, in the recruiting services, but like having those top quarterbacks down the future on my Devy roster. So any final thoughts, guys, on the board?
Just my strategy here with a lot of these players were I want to add a class to my NFL roster, and I really like some of the picks that I was able to get here in this one. Now I'm like, of course I liked it because we had 1 pick every three attempts, but I really like how this draft turned out.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that it's a great exercise for us to really identify different values, right? How we see the players that we are interested in, how we evaluate. Because obviously, like Felix, you like size, you like power,
right.
You can kind of see a trend with you. I like playmakers, and I like explosive, dynamic receivers that have the upside of nuance at the NFL level. So it's kind of good that we're getting a different variety of values, because I think that actually helps us exercise a lot more and helps people really identify different traits that we look for.
Yeah, and I think my final words and advice would be when you're in these drafts, whether it's a C2C supplemental draft or a startup Devy draft like this, is always just take your guys, right? If you feel strongly about a player, take them. So ADP is can sometimes not always be the case. I think with this being such a young, part of fantasy football, ADP can sometimes be really all over the place. As you can see from this draft, I think there's probably players that you're thinking like, wow, they were drafted. And then you're wondering where 5 or 6 players that you think should have been drafted. So everyone has a different point of view. But Jason, Felix, thanks again for jumping on the channel here, and appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it, man.